So how did you get all the footage?
So yeah, no, we had a Pakistani crew that we sort of worked with via the internet, and which was totally appropriate for what this is about. So I've filmed a lot in South Asia, and as a white person, it takes time. The film that we made took 7 years, and so this we didn't have that time for. So I think we didn't have the budget or the time to go to Pakistan, although obviously I would have loved to. But it was interesting in the footage that when I was editing it, in that the crew was from the city. They were, so they were also, and they also didn't speak the same language. So the farmers spoke this language called Saraiki, which was incredibly hard to find a translator that spoke Saraiki here in the States, and because that's how rare it is. And so there was this distance between Islamabad and these farmers, and you saw that. And when I would get little glimpses, they had like 4 cameras with them, and I would get glimpses of the filmmakers, and they were like in leather jackets and jeans. So there was definitely a disconnect there too.
All right, well, I'd like to open up the floor. Does anybody have a question? I'm sure there's tons of them. Stay right there.
Yes, Amy, thank you. How did the project come into works? How did you come about the project, et cetera?
Et cetera.
I actually met Faisal in Malaysia. We were at a festival that actually a lot of you should know about. It's called the Kuala Lumpur Environmental Film Festival, and it actually had a lot of technology in their programming. And I had just arrived, and I sat down, and in these like international film festivals, they always have like lots of ambassadors thinking and talking, and it was like a big opening ceremony. And I was beginning to fall asleep from the jet lag, and so was the guy next to me, and it was Faisal, and he's like, "I need coffee, man. I'm from Seattle." I said, "Me too." And so we connected on that level, and we connected because my dad was a civil engineer, and I grew up in Cairo, Egypt, because my dad was building a sewer there for USAID, and he had a very similar trajectory as Faisal in that he was heading up this project. And so in the 70s, USAID, they built this sewer for Cairo, and then they left it. And so my dad ended up going back in the 90s then to train the Egyptians how to maintain it, how to use it. There was no follow-up by the US development. And it really broke my dad's heart, because when he went back, there was still the disconnect. There wasn't that connection with his Egyptian counterparts. The Westerners that were there, they didn't understand that like maybe if they showed up for the wedding of one of the daughters of the guys, that would make a huge difference in the project. Or that instead of working 9 to 5, they took the long lunch break too and showed back up at the office for the night shift, because that's when Egyptians work, is wee morning and in the night. And it was really hard for my dad he kept trying to make the change, but within the system of USAID, he couldn't. So in a sense, when I met Faisal, my dad had just died, and so I was like, oh, I want to do this with you.
Political instability in Pakistan affects farmers and irrigation. I mean, we're always getting bombarded in our media that it's such an unsafe place.
It's a ton. I mean, there's so much. When I got all this footage, I mean, these filmmakers from Islamabad, they took so much footage, and so much of it was so great. It could, of course, as filmmakers know, it could be a whole other film. Especially the guy in the white, Termin Haj, he talked about how terrorists were really damaging their livelihood and how scary it was. It was such. I feel like that's another film in the sense that like he's Muslim, his kids are Muslim, they go to a Muslim school, but he was like, oh, this terrorism, it's really terrible, it's hurting us.
All right. Yes, sir. I saw your hand pop up first.
How did you decide what your objectives were, and do you think that you met them?
Well, the idea was that to really connect how important it is for, well, what Faisal's goal was. He made this for his students. Well, he made it because he wanted to say, hey, I've done this project that's really great. And he made it for his students because he really wants his PhD students to think ahead, not just of what their PhD is going to be about, but how they're going to make it applicable to the people, to the shareholders, he calls them, or to the people that it's going to serve before they even start the project. And he actually advocates that people in research, it's actually their job to be sure that it's implemented. Because right now in the academic world, there's no push to make your research applicable. It's like you can just publish it and it ends up in a library, and that's the goal.
Did I see you edited the film as well?
Yes.
Which is beautifully done.
Thank you.
And I'm just curious, what was, anything about your process for doing that? With the tiny thing being, how did you deal with all the language?
I actually never made a film in English yet. I'm going to start immediately.
That does.
Yeah, it's not easy, but now that I'm in the rhythm of it, working with translation it's amazing what you can do is when you have transcripts translated and if you really tight time code, and then you can sort of kind of guess where things fit. And then I actually found a Saraiki speaker in Sacramento, and I went to Sacramento, and we sat next to each other in his cell phone / athletic wear shop for many, many hours. And what I love about sitting with translators is all this stuff, it's not just language, it's so much more than language. This brought him, he was like, oh, this reminds me of my father, and this is, he came to tears sometimes about like, oh, this is my country, and here he is in the middle of Sacramento, selling like Oakland gear or whatever the team is. But so it was really, I love working with translators. I do love it. It is really, really. I'm excited to edit something in English. I'm ready to do that. But I do love working with translators because I feel like you do get to enter this world of story and language and nuance.
It's just your structure. Was this a film where you shot everything and then went to edit it, or had you structured it at a time?
I loved, how every time you look at like how to make a documentary, it always says like write the script and get the structure first. I've never done that, but maybe for the next one in English I will. Yeah, because it's like Faisal commissioned it, like the professor commissioned it, and he thought he knew what he wanted, but he wasn't. It is that what do you get, and like what can you create from what you get.
All right, one more question? Yes, sir.
So, tangentially related, can you talk a bit about coordinating the filming efforts, not being there, and just kind of, presumably you couldn't really micromanage it if you wanted to, and you said they did great work, and it looks like they did, so what was that experience like?
We had a few Skype conversations, and we talked. I gave them a big list of like ideals of like what would be the best thing that we could get. And I said, can you get close-ups of hands? Can you get people's faces? I just kept saying like as much as, and I said, can you get women as much as you can? In the end, there wasn't, it's a whole other film, yeah. But so I think we connected well, and they were great filmmakers. They just did a great job, and so I think it was like lucky that we found them, and they took the job very seriously because it was a paid gig from the University of Washington. I have a feeling that they probably, even though it wasn't a lot, I think it was quite well for them. It was a big gig.
All right, so that was a great film. Can we give her another hand, please? Thank you very much, Amy Benson. Now,